by uncovering this abandonment and rejection wound, I was able to see that, and have been seeing that, um, I was afraid that he was going to leave me. I was afraid that I wasn't, good enough for him. And I felt that way ever since we've been sober. And I felt that way throughout our whole relationship. And I felt that way with my ex. And I felt that way in relationships, that, fear of being rejected, fear of somebody leaving me. And so I would rather put up that wall. I would rather,
My mission is to impact the hearts and minds of women, helping them change their stories and empowering them to love themselves, their bodies, and their lives. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Change Your Story podcast. I'm Hannah Dawson, your host and transformation coach. I'm a certified personal trainer, nutritionist, mindset coach, writer, speaker, and creator of the Fit Club Babes app, and I am here to help you transform your life. While I love teaching all things nutrition and fitness, and trust me, you'll get lots of that on here, my true passion lies in the power of mindset and self-relationship. I know firsthand how powerful a mindset shift can be. It has profoundly impacted not only my health and fitness journey, but also my relationship with myself, and it can do the same for you too. Many women believe as we age, we lose our beauty, body, and health, but that's not true. You can feel and look amazing and get better with age, and I'm going to show you how. Are you ready to change your story? Let's flip the script one thought at a time. What is up, Change Your Story listeners? Well, we have a special episode today. We have a guest on our podcast. Her name is Natasha Delany. She is a transformation and business coach for Indigenous women. She is a speaker and an event planner, you guys. And on top of all that, she's a wife and a mom to four or five? Four,
five.
Natasha?
Five.
Five. And she is, you guys, she has such an incredible story. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to have some incredible women, and Natasha gets to be the first one because her story is just so powerful. And we are really going to be diving into changing your story around rejection and how this can just impact so many areas of your life and your relationship. So welcome, Natasha. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And so let's just jump right into it. Can you kind of share a little bit about who you are and maybe a story or kind of what brought this topic or your own story around rejection into your life?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a mother of five. Um, I myself grew up in foster care. Um, I grew up away from my nation, my home nation, which is Samson Cree Nation here in Alberta. And I grew up in a non-Indigenous home. The home that I lived in, it was great in terms of, meeting my basic needs, shelter, food. But when it came to actual support, a supportive, loving relationship, and having that role modeled, that those kind of strong, compassionate, empathetic, and what's the word? Um, Unconditional loving relationships. I had no concept of what that looked like or meant, because I wasn't modeled this in the foster home that I lived in. And so after I moved from that foster home at 14, I lived in some foster home or some group homes, some more foster homes, supported independent living homes was raised until I aged out of care. My mom had passed away when I was in kindergarten. My dad struggled with addictions and was homeless for most of his life up until he passed away in my 20s. And so for me, this whole topic of rejection and abandonment actually just came up very recently on my healing journey. I'm 6 years in recovery and 6 years on this healing journey of becoming more self-aware and asking creator, God, universe, like show me more of the areas in which I can be of service.
I love.
And so, you know, this process, it doesn't all come at once. It comes throughout, right when we need it to happen to get to the next level of our businesses, to get to the next level of our lives. And so this realization of my fear of abandonment and rejection that stemmed all the way back from when my mom passed away and I was PGO, I became PGO after that. That is really when I realized that this abandonment wound that I had, this rejection wound, really affected so many of my relationships after that, from the relationship that I had with my foster mom. I can blame her all that I want for all of the things that I experienced in my life, but I had the vision, I had the realization, I had the clarity that despite that, those abandonment and rejection wounds that I had, it wouldn't have changed anything, anyways, despite how everybody else was towards me or how I perceived how everybody else was towards me. I had put up these walls um, in every single relationship that I had. And so yeah, that was like, the the breaking point, the moment where I was able to look back and see how much, these abandonment and rejection wounds really affect us and our relationships.
Wow. Wow, that's so powerful. It's just such a, I mean, there's so many layers, I think, to this topic. How do you think you found the strength to transform those challenges? Like what was the thing that kind of um moved the needle or awoken that inside you that's like, wow, like I need to change this for, if I want to make an impact in my children's lives, my community, the women I impact, this is going to affect every area of my life until I deal with it. What kind of was that moment for you, or what kept kind of getting in the way, I guess, to realize that, okay, I like this area of rejection, I better start dealing with what this is.
Yeah. So it happened. Uh, so me and my husband were both in recovery. We both went through 2 years of addiction to alcohol and cocaine. And his actually my sobriety date is coming up. It's December 28th, 2018. And his sobriety date is in January of 2019.
Wow.
And there was so much like stuff, like so much toxicity, like there was domestic violence, like there was just so much toxic stuff from the time that we even first started to hang out early on in our relationship. And my relationship prior to that with my ex was over 10 years. And it was, subtly toxic. It wasn't as toxic as the relationship that I had in addiction with my current husband. Um, and so in our sobriety, we've been working on healing our relationship with our kids. We have them in therapy. We've been working on, our professional lives. So I finished my business degree and my MBA in the last 6 years. Um,
Congratulations. That's
yeah.
just like that's incredible, Natasha. Keep going.
Thank you. Yeah. And so really concentrating on these things and also, continuing my own healing journey. I've been in therapy. I've been, I listen to YouTube videos. I do Indigenous ceremony. I have done 12-step programs. Like I've done so much personal development work on myself as well during these last 6 years. And I feel like there was a moment in the time in the last 6 months where I felt like my relationship with my husband Corey had stalled. Like I was continuing to grow and evolve and change, and he wasn't. And this was my perspective at the time. It's since changed. And um there was a bit of a breakdown in the relationship, and I felt like I either had to leave, um, or there had to be a change. Something had to change or shift. And so we started going to couples therapy. Again, this was like our relationship has been the very last, you know, thing that that we needed to work on,
Mm.
and heal since addiction. And so, um, on this journey of he's also started personal therapy, at the same time as we've been doing couples therapy. And through couples therapy, I've realized that these issues of me and this abandonment and this rejection, not only has affected my relationship with Corey and even my perspective of like, oh, well, it's his fault. He's the one that's not been able to grow, and, blaming him for all of the problems that we've had in our relationship, but also seeing how it's affected all of my relationships so far. And of course, I'm not putting complete blame on me, right? But it is super important that when we're seeking accountability, when we're seeking healing, there's always two people in a breakdown in a relationship. So it's important to understand like where we need to be accountable for, right? And so this was me coming to that realization of, instead of continuously having blaming him for these breakdowns in our relationship, this miscommunication, these reactions that we were having towards each other, that um, by uncovering this abandonment and rejection wound, I was able to see that, and have been seeing that, um, I was afraid that he was going to leave me. I was afraid that I wasn't, good enough for him. And I felt that way ever since we've been sober. And I felt that way throughout our whole relationship. And I felt that way with my ex. And I felt that way in relationships, that, fear of being rejected, fear of somebody leaving me. And so I would rather put up that wall. I would rather, threaten to leave. I would rather do all of these behaviors to avoid being abandoned or rejected.
Hmm. That brings me to, I want to flow right into this next question, self-rejection, right? Because often, Natasha, when we go through rejection and abandonment, what we don't realize till later and why we do that is we reject ourselves, right?
Yes.
We self-reject. So can you break that down a little bit? Maybe, why rejection feels so personal and how come we turn inward at ourselves first before.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, with my therapist, we do a lot of inner child work, and I found that this has really
Mhm.
shifted my thinking and, the way, and my relationship with myself, like the biggest thing that
Mhm.
this has helped with. And so me and my therapist, like we sat down, and we went back to that point in time, that version of myself where, my mom had passed away, and we were coming back from her funeral, and I was crying, and I remember thinking like, I'm alone,
Mhm.
I'm alone and I'm stuck in this situation. And so I had to mentally and visually in my mind go back to her as I am now, um, and have this conversation with her that, it's okay. Like, it's okay that you're mad that your mom left you. It's okay that, you have these feelings. Because what my therapist had made me aware of was that I never allowed myself to feel angry at my mom. I never allowed myself to feel sad And she's right, because looking back, every single time that I would say tell somebody about my mom or whatever, like I always had an excuse. So, well, she died because, she could help me better on the other side, or she died because, there was always these reasonings, and I never actually allowed myself at that time to be angry at her, to
Mm.
be upset, to have my feelings. And this is really the core of our healing, is that we ignore ourselves. We ignore these feelings. We push down fear. We push away anger. We push away these bad feelings without understanding that we're really telling, these younger versions of ourselves that they don't deserve to be angry or sad or hurt or, feel these feelings. You have to be happy all the time. You have to be joyful. And sure, that is the goal, but we can't get to that goal if we're not acknowledging these feelings of anger and sadness and, um, ignoring and self-abandoning ourselves and those different versions of ourselves that were in pain.
Oh, I just love that. I love that it's like we can't heal unless we feel, right?
Yeah.
And you have to feel like you're deserving enough to, yeah, have those, to be angry, to feel sad, to have those emotions, which, is such a weird feeling.
Yeah.
What do you think, someone that's maybe going through some weird emotions, right? As women, things can come up later on that really are traumatic from our childhood. And so what do you think are some signs that someone may kind of be aware? Because unless we are aware of our habits, our hangups, our coping mechanisms, we cannot change. And a lot of this can be due to rejection. So what are some signs do you think that maybe you had that maybe someone else is having that is like, oh, this is a sign that I'm not dealing with rejection? Like, were there kind of signs or something you could share with the audience of maybe this is what are kind of things that might be impacting you?
Yeah. Um, so a couple things for sure that come to me are the constant need to run when there is conflict. That's the biggest thing. Looking back, there were times where I'm like, hey, I need to leave this situation because it's abusive, or whatever. But when we're in a relationship with somebody that we love, um and maybe the other person is also struggling with the same abandonment and rejection and wounds, but when we're in a relationship with somebody that we love and we're making a conscious decision every single day to be with this person, whether that's romantically or like a parent or whatever it is, and there's conflict and we're feeling the need to run, that's your automatic reaction without being able to actually sit with yourself in or get yourself into like a calm state to think rationally. um, then that I would say is the first sign that you might be struggling with some rejection and abandonment issues.
Okay. I love that. Yeah, run. Run. There's so many running ways to run, right? It doesn't have to actually be like physically leaving. It could just be shutting down, neglecting, right? Just ignoring, not talking. Like, yeah, I think that's a huge one for sure. And now, what do you think, you know, okay, now they're aware. Now we've come to kind of awareness of, okay, this is might be what's going on. What are some steps or practices that have helped you deal with not only just rejection from others, but just self-rejection, like learning to love your body, learning to have a healthy relationship with your body, like you said with your husband, you didn't feel worthy sometimes of being loved, or you just didn't feel you are worth loving. And a lot of that we can try to hyper focus on our body image. And so what things have helped you have accept your body, not just your body, your personality, everything, to have a healthy self-image, healthy identity, so that you are able to not see rejection as something personal.
Yeah. So many times when we're in this state of wanting to run, um, not wanting to be vulnerable or to communicate what's actually really going on with us during, a breakdown or a conversation, for fear again of being abandoned and rejected. um, going through the fear and doing it anyways is huge. So being able to have these conversations and expressing and being vulnerable and saying like, hey, especially when it comes to these conversations with my husband, which I'm learning, like, and he's been mimicking me, like he's been mirroring my awareness and understanding and empathy. And so we're at this point now where we're actually able to have these conversations where he's not reacting and I'm not reacting, and we're able to communicate with each other in a way that where we're being vulnerable, like, hey, like this is actually what the problem is. It's like it's not you, it's actually like this situation that happened to me like in childhood or whatever. um and I feel like being able to be vulnerable in that way and him being open and on the same journey to be able to communicate and allow me to have this safe space to express and be vulnerable, really does help me with my relationship with myself, and to continue to tell that younger version of myself that was self-critical, that was judgmental, that was, like not feeling safe in these relationships, to feel heard and to feel safe and to feel that unconditional love. That's, and for me, that's been this thing, this concept of what does unconditional love mean to me. And what it means to me is that I can make mistakes. I'm safe to make mistakes. I'm safe to, fail. And my husband's still gonna love me. And my kids are still going to love me. And the people who really do know how to respect me and love me, they're still going to love me. And I'm going to continue to love me. I'm not going to reject that little girl anymore. I'm not going to, tell her that, shut up, or, you're stupid, or, you're ugly, or, there these things that we tell ourselves, but we're not really telling them to ourselves. It's like that little girl is saying these things. And so yeah, it really is about really understanding what it means to love yourself unconditionally. And it's exactly what that word says, like unconditionally. There's no conditions at all. No matter what we do, we're still gonna love ourselves. And I find that's just like super powerful in itself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, we could talk forever on this subject, but I think that is so powerful. It's just unconditional, no conditions. And it can be different. Rejection can look different for so many people in the way that they deal with it. Like your running, right? Can be someone's turns obsessive or addiction or, weight loss or plastic surgery or validation or all of these things. And really, it's just avoidance of worrying about being ourselves and being vulnerable and loving ourselves. I absolutely love that, Natasha. If there was one, key message that we've talked about today about handling rejection that you would like listeners to be able to take away from what you've said today, one thing that you would love to tell another woman about rejection and how it could, how she could reframe it, what would that be?
If you were to not do anything, if you were to not, continuously, whether it's working out, whether it's, plastic surgery, whether it's like being successful at a business, whether it's passing a test, like If you were to not do anything at all, you would still be enough.
Hmm. I love that. Wow. I mean, we just need silence after that. We just need to take a moment of silence right now. No, that is so powerful. You know what's so funny that you said that, Natasha? Is I was thinking the other day, because, I was writing notes. I normally write notes when I'm working out because my mind kind of goes into like a meditative state. And it was that I was kind of dealing with rejection or fear or stuff kind of going on in life right now with my business, and it was this, and I heard this kind of voice say, God, whatever you want to call it, universe or whatever, say this: if everything was to go away, if you were to lose everything,
Mm-hmm.
who would you be?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the answer is, I would still be me, and I would still be enough. And it was like that question, like, if I lost everything today, who would I be? And it's so crazy because we can attach who we are to things and to status that we lose a part of who we are. And we think if we lose that, then we're not worthy of being loved, and that, we're not enough. And so I just love how you said that. Wow, I've just loved having you on the podcast today. Um,
Thank you so
where
much for
can
having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And I'm sure that, I mean, you guys, Natasha is like, I look up to her, you guys, so much. I actually started training her years ago. I
A
forget,
year
like,
sober. I was. I don't even think I was a year sober.
you weren't even a year sober, but I just felt so connected to you. And just, I've just watched her grow, you guys. She is like taking over the woman entrepreneurship by storm. She is such a powerhouse. Where can people find you? I know you have amazing programs and you have an amazing business for Indigenous women. Is it just specifically for Indigenous, or can it be for anyone?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about opening that up in 2025. Right now, it's specifically for Indigenous women entrepreneurs. Um, and you can find me on Facebook, Natasha Delany. Last name is Delany, and everybody spells it Delaney. So that's why I'm spelling it out. Natasha Delany on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on Instagram, it's the Natasha Delany.
Perfect. You guys, I will put everything in the show notes. So yeah, if you want to reach out to her about the show or the podcast, or go follow her and see, how amazing she is. She always has inspiring stuff going on. Yeah, if you need some encouragement, some inspiration, go check her out. Natasha, thank you so much for tuning in today, or for being on here today, tuning in too. But being here today, you are one of my first guests and last guest of 2024, and we are moving on to 2025, and I'm so excited and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And I just know that you're going to impact the hearts and minds of women all over the world, and I'm excited to watch it, and I'm excited to be with you on it. So
Well, I love you.